Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hope you're doing well. We're continuing our deep dive in Tafseer As Sa'di. We're in Surah Al-Baqarah, picking up on ayat 270. Let's begin. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. And whatever you spend in charity, or whatever vows you make, then verily Allah knows it all. But for the wrongdoers, there are no helpers. This verse speaks of the reward for all types of spending, obligatory and recommended, great or small, that Allah has enjoined, as well as vows by which a person commits himself to something. Allah Azza wa Jal knows them, and nothing is hidden from Him. Again, nothing is hidden from Him. He knows the intention behind them, whether it is sincerely for His sake or not. If it is based on sincerity and seeking the pleasure of Allah, He will reward it abundantly. If a person does not spend what is enjoined upon him, and does not fulfill the vows to which he committed himself, or he intends thereby to please people, then he is a wrongdoer, who has acted inappropriately. Thus he deserves a severe punishment, and no one will be able to benefit him or help him. Hence, Allah says, but for the wrongdoers, there are no helpers. So, where you commit yourself to something. So the vows you make, and whatever you spend in charity, or whatever vows you make, then Allah knows it. So in Thomas Hobbes' Leviathan, he had a whole thing about importance of keeping covenants and how religion plays a role in that. And here we can see that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to keep our word. To keep our word. Which is difficult in today's time. So many people, well, if you're honest, it isn't difficult, but what I mean is a lot of people don't really value their own word. Oh, I'll do this, I'll do that, all the excuses, but they just don't really live up to it. And I find that to be quite sad. Quite sad. Oh, if you give me money, I'll spend it on this. Oh, if you help me, then I'll help you with this. So we can see clearly, your intention is known already, and you can't hide it. 271. If you disclose acts of charity, it is good. But if you conceal them and give it charity to the poor, that is better for you. And He will expiate some of your bad deeds. And Allah is well aware of what you do. So, before we begin, charity is expiation for sins. If you disclose acts of charity by giving them openly and publicly, if the purpose is to seek the pleasure of Allah, then it is good, and it serves the intended purpose. But if you conceal them, that is, do them in secret, and give it charity to the poor, that is better for you. Also, something that's interesting, okay, so sometimes there's a double fold here. You can get motivated by people who you see doing good. But there are some, like I saw one yesterday where this blonde guy who looked kind of like Logan Paul, he went to India. There was a guy sleeping on the ground, and he like washed the guy. He didn't use gloves. You should always use gloves when touching other people. You know, I'm a germaphobe, but you should use gloves. You know, there's a lot of diseases out there. But they like gave him a new shirt, haircut, shampooed him, a bath, and gave him some fancy like necklace and sent him on his way. Now, they didn't exactly improve his situation, and I don't recommend just going up to certain people. Some people are mentally ill, drug addicts. You'll get bitten, they'll rob you later, they'll harass you in the street. Next time they see you, there's a lot of risks involved, you know. That video had a feeling of, you're doing it for the views. But if someone's cleaning up trash in the ocean, and you can see the piles and they're putting it to a recycle company, I get very motivated by that stuff. It gives me hope. When you see someone who adopted a baby Like, that's beautiful. Somebody who, I see lots of cats for some reason. Instagram shows me that there was a cat whose eyes were infected. The eyes have to be removed. This woman nursed it back to health and took it in, right? Well, there's different kinds of charity, right? Charity to animals, to humans, the needy, you name it. I like those. But then there are some where you're like, it's just too cliche and you want attention, and it's not just for the pleasure of Allah. So you always have to be mindful. There are people who will fight for, I won't get too deep into it, but you know that there's some people you feel like their charitable heart isn't real, you know, because of how nasty and combative they are in their regular life. You know, I don't know, it's something strange. This indicates that charity is given secretly to the poor is better than charity given openly. But if charity is not given to the poor, then the verse implies that giving secretly is not better than that which is given openly. It depends on what serves a greater purpose. If charity openly makes act of worship visible and encourages others to follow suit and the like, then it is better than doing it secretly. I see, that's what I was kind of getting at, which I think the nuance is. It just depends on the person too. But I think if you're really rich and you want to maintain a low profile, you want to give charity, but behind a thing, I've done that before. I'm not rich. What I meant to say is, like, people who have wealth will give it sometimes knowingly and unknowingly to the people, and I've given charity where it's known and unknown, and I like both, but I do like people to see where some of them the tips they give me, where some of it goes, right? So I think that's like a accountability and transparency, but also, you know, a little bit of privacy, right? The words "and give it charity to the poor" indicate that the giver should look for those who are in greatest need. So look for those who are in greatest need, and not to give it to one who is in need if there is someone else who is in greater need. Allah Azza wa Jal tells us that charity is good for the giver, which implies that it will bring reward. He also says, and He will expiate some of your bad deeds, which will ward off punishment. And Allah is well aware of what you do, of good or evil, great or small. What is referred to here is the requital for deeds. So again, if you can only give small amounts, don't underestimate. You give a large amount and it pinches a little bit, then still know that you're going to get a reward for that. Because some people will earn a bonus from work or something and they got a little extra, and it's hard to let that go and then give it. But if you can do it, then that's wonderful, right? Now we're dealing with 272, 273, 274. It is not for you, O Prophet, to guide them, but Allah guides whomever He wills. Whatever wealth you spend in charity benefits your own souls, and you do not spend except seeking the pleasure of Allah. Whatever wealth you give will be repaid to you in full, and you will not be wronged. So, what I really enjoy about how this is worded, you will not be wronged, is when people give money and then they find out it was a scam, it's one of the worst feelings ever. And you feel wronged, and you become wary of giving. And here we see Allah is not going to wrong us. He's swift in accounting. So know that it'll be there for you on your record on Judgment Day. Charity is for those poor who are wholly occupied in Allah's cause and cannot move about in the land seeking trade or work. The one who is unaware thinks, because of their dignity, that they are free from want. You will know them by their mark. They do not ask importunately from people, and whatever of wealth you give, then verily Allah knows it well. Those who spend in charity of their wealth by night and by day, in secret and in public, will have their reward with their Lord. They will have no fear, nor will they grieve. The fear, you need to have hope in Allah that He's going to have it add up for you on Judgment Day. And the amount of sins we all inquire that we don't even know of, you have to make sure that you're doing good in the world. Don't let it all stack up negatively. And imagine if you had a table filled with fruits and you were going to give that in charity, and all of a sudden the table just gets raided, by some street thugs, and you can't give it anymore. You would grieve because you're like, there goes my surplus that I was going to donate. Now what do? I'm totally saddened. But Allah is going to reward you based on the intentions too. In an atheistic world, you don't really have the promise of a delayed repayment. It doesn't really matter in the atheistic world, that type of charity. It's nice if you do it, but you don't get a reward in the next life. It's only the here and now. So for them, people like more incentives here and now because they don't have faith that something else in the next realm is anything of note. Here Allah, the Mighty and Sublime, says to His Prophet, "You are not responsible for guiding people. Rather, all you have to do is convey the message clearly, and guidance is in the hand of Allah." This indicates that just as charity may be given to a Muslim, it may also be given to a disbeliever. It may also be given to a disbeliever, even if he is not guided. Hence Allah says, whatever wealth you spend in charity, that is, whether the amount is great or small, whether it is given to a Muslim or non-Muslim. So yes, we can give charity to non-Muslims. Like, there's people who, they dedicate a lot of their time to teaching, like math tutors in impoverished schools. And imagine you're like, hey, I'll take you out to lunch. Like, it's a sister to a sister, a brother to a brother, like a female to female, male to male. You get what I'm saying? And you want to take them out. Or later, you see somebody who's always, is an example, someone who dedicates their free time to doing good, but they're driving a bucket, and their bucket is not getting them from point A to point B very well, and the transmission ain't doing too good. And then you've come into some wealth, or you have an extra car, and you give it to them in charity, so that they can get from point A to point B more smoothly. There's all different ways to give charity, right? So you can do that for a Muslim or a non-Muslim. That's wonderful. There's a lot of different ways to help people in their times of need. Benefits your own souls, that is, you are the ones who benefit from it, and you do not spend except seeking the pleasure of Allah. This is a statement about charity given by the believers that is based on their faith, because it is only for the sake of Allah Azza. Their faith forbids them to have any bad intentions. Okay, so their faith forbids them from having bad intentions or ulterior motives, and it obliges them to be sincere. So, intentions, motives, sincerity. Whatever wealth you give will be repaid to you in full on the day of resurrection, when you will be given your reward in full and you will not be wronged. That is, nothing will be detracted from your righteous deeds, not even the smallest amount, just as your bad deeds will not be increased. Then Allah mentions the recipients of charity who are the most entitled to it, namely, 1. The poor, 2. Those who are wholly occupied in Allah's cause, that is, they are completely focused on obedience to Allah. So I wonder if that means like scholars. in jihad and otherwise. They are prepared for that and are kept ready for that. So, the poor, wholly occupied in Allah's cause. Could you call that like servants of Allah? Like maybe, because scholars, warriors, because like women who help people learn tajweed, right? So like they do it for free, some of them, and if you want to get them like a present, that'd be nice. Maybe that includes like, because you gotta support your local scholars. If nobody takes time to study the religion and learn, then how can there be any knowledge? You can't just trust Google. You know how many times I have the physical hadith books, and you if you don't know the number, Google isn't going to show you. You'd be so surprised. I hate how Google works. It's an anti-Islamic search engine, and you'll type in a hadith like with the keywords, won't show up, won't show it, telling me that it's so smart but it can't find it. It obfuscates it. It hides your knowledge from you. And we can't just let artificial intelligence dictate our religion to us. Those who are unable to travel in order to seek provision, Allah says, and cannot move about in the land, that is, they are unable to travel in order to earn a living. I wonder if that's with the disabled, unable to travel. The one who is unaware thinks because of their dignity that they are free from want. This tells us of the sincerity of their patience and their dignified attitude. So maybe you perceive the need. Like maybe, like an example, someone, they breed goats. You can see that their studs are getting kind of old and depleted. So you buy them a new stud. Here's this stud goat. Help your dairy farm. You know. Or maybe someone has a chicken coop, and then you're like, hey, I'll help fix your chicken coop for you because it looks like it needs some repairs. Or maybe you don't even say, oh, it looks bad. You just like, hey, I really saw this nice architectural style for chicken coops on Pinterest. I really want to show it to you. What do you think? And then they're like, I love it. And you're like, let's build it. I'll do it. You know, free of charge. You never know. You will know them by their mark, that is referred to in the description given of them. This does not contradict the words, the one who is unaware thinks that they are free from want, because not everyone who is unaware of their condition has deep insight by means of which he may know what they are going through. As for the one who does have deep insight, he will realize as soon as he sees them and recognizes their mark. They do not ask importunately from people. That is, they do not ask persistently. Rather, if they do ask, in the cases of necessity, they do not persist in asking. Now, this is an interesting one. They do not persistently ask. There are some aggressive beggars that I've seen in India clips where a tourist is buying ice cream and a whole grown man who's gone through puberty, looks like he's 22, will be like, can you buy me an ice cream? Hey man, you got a nice iPhone. Can you buy me ice cream? Can you buy me ice cream? And it's just like, whoa, get the hell away from me. Like, there's some people who are scary, you know, or they come up to your car. A lot of drug addicts do that. They come up to your car and they say, like, can I wash your window? Can I wash your window? Now, they're not, some of them, they want to do a service and get money, but it's like they'll expect a big tip from you. Or they actually come up to your car. Like, there's a little island that people wait on sometimes, and as you're waiting to turn or go onto the freeway, they'll come up to your car window and be like, hey man, you got some money? You got a cigarette? You know, like, get away from my car. You know, it's pretty scary because some of them are deeply mentally ill, and if you open your wallet, they'll snatch your whole wallet. It's very dangerous. And it's very uncomfortable. Super uncomfortable. So, the humble person who is doing the best they can versus the one who is, like, really up in your face. You know, because you want to feel good about it in a way. Like, okay, man, like, it's nice to have to give charity to someone who is humble about it and who isn't being a total pushy person. But there's an expression called beggars can't be choosers. Because there are some people who will beg and they'll ask for the best thing, and you're like, hey man, you should be grateful for whatever you get, but they're not. They just continue to be really tense, you know? These are the ones who are most deserving of charity because Allah described them in the best terms. As for spending in charity on anyone, it is good and kind, and the one who does that will be rewarded. Hence Allah says, and whatever wealth you give, then verily Allah knows it well. Then Allah tells us of the status of those who give charity at all times and in all circumstances. So at all times, whether through peace or war, circumstances, whether they got a lot of money or only a little, those who spend in charity of their wealth for the sake of Allah, in obedience to Him and seeking His pleasure, and they do not spend it on things that are forbidden or disliked, or to fulfill their own whims and desires, by night and by day, in secret and in public, we will have their reward with their Lord. That is, a great reward with the most merciful Lord. They will have no fear, when those who fell short will be afraid, nor will they grieve. When those who were heedless grieve, they will attain their goal and be saved from what they fear. As Allah referred to the status of those who are kind to His slaves by spending on them in different ways, He also refers to the wrongdoers who mistreat His slaves in the worst manner. Okay, now we're in 275, 276, 77, 78, 79, 80, 81. Okay. Those who consume usury will not stand on the day of resurrection, except like a madman who is being beaten by the shaitan. Ooh, coming in hot. Right there. Okay, usury. Riba. That is because they say trade is like usury, but Allah has permitted trade and forbidden usury. Therefore, he who desists because of the admonition that has come to him from his Lord may keep his past gains. His case is for Allah to judge. But those who return to it will be inhabitants of the fire. They will abide therein forever. Allah destroys usury, but will give increases for deeds of charity. Allah does not love any ungrateful sinner. Now, I would love to see a Christian argue for usury. Especially when so many Christians are in debt because of college, car, and mortgage. And how credit card debt is a huge problem in America. Those who believe and do righteous deeds and establish prayer and give zakah will have their reward with their Lord. They will have no fear, nor will they grieve. O you who believe, fear Allah, and give up what is still due to you of usury, if you are indeed believers. So give up what is still due to you of usury. Okay, so if you lent someone money and you're charging them interest, you need to cut that off. We need more Islamic banks, I'll tell you that. If you do not do it, then be warned of a declaration of war from Allah and His Messenger. But if you repent, you may retain your capital, neither wrongdoing nor being wronged. If the debtor is in difficulty, give him time until it is easy for him to repay. But if you remit it by way of charity, that is best for you, if only you knew. So remittance of debt. Isn't that beautiful? Really think about that. It takes a strong heart to remit some type of repayment. It's not easy. And fear the day when you will be brought back to Allah. Then every soul will be paid in full for what it earned, and none will be wronged. And so we see here, again, the justice of Allah. So, what we earned, that's the most powerful thing too. A lot of atheists never mention that. What you earn is important. What you did. They always try to say like, oh, God's so evil, he just puts us in hell. But they never really examine like, what did you do of wickedness? What did you do? Here Allah the Mighty and Sublime tells us of the bad end and hardship that those who consume usury will face. They will not rise from their graves on the day of resurrection to stand except like a madman who is being beaten by the shaitan. So they will rise from their graves confused and shaky as if they are drunk, expecting a severe punishment. Now I want you to think about something. There's been a meme I shared years ago. Maybe you'll remember it. Where a house is on fire and a woman is taking a small little bucket of water and throwing it. It said that's what it's like to pay the minimum of your credit card bill every month. The interest stacks up, right? So think about how high interest banking has ruined America. I want you to really think about it. Because they tell you gotta go to college or you're a nobody. You're a loser. You deserve nothing. They make college so expensive. So overpriced. If they really wanted everyone to become smarter, they would have cheaper prices. But it's a way of gatekeeping knowledge, which is odd in the digital age where there's free libraries. But credentialism is part of that mafia. So if you want to go to college, you got to go so many years, and you have to take a loan from a bank, and the interest drowns you. So the student debt bubble is so high, and there's no real job guarantee. And they pitch these loans to 18-year-olds. 18-year-olds. Then the 18-year-old is strapped with all this debt. They think, oh, I can't have children because I'm in debt and a mortgage. They're like, hey, this shitty house in California costs $1 million, costs, $500,000. If you look at the real estate market in California, it's absurd. And how much crime there is, you're like, I gotta go into debt for that. And even with car loans, so school, a mortgage, and your car, debt. Interest stacks up on all those. And so you have to remember how people are enslaved with debt. It's a nightmare for so many. And the saddest part is when someone took out a lot of loans for school, and then they don't want to pursue that career path anymore. And it's really heartbreaking that they're paying off their mortgages for years. And then when you pay off that mortgage plus the interest, here comes property taxes. So America likes robbing people of wealth. And that what makes me mad is that you'll get a lot of people who will brag about America, but then they don't really look at the financial system. Here, Allah the Mighty and Sublime tells us that is because they thought and said trade is like usury. Such a statement would only come from one who is very ignorant or one who ignores what he knows out of stubbornness. So Allah will requite them in an inappropriate manner, and they will become like insane people. So they will become like insane people, being beaten by the shaitan, like a madman, a severe punishment. So this then means, from my understanding, that if you're in real estate and you're flipping houses, I wonder if that's participating in high interest, if that's participating in riba. Now, the tricky part comes here is how do men get status to attract a mate without going into interest-based usury? That's another very important question. A sister, will she pick a man who doesn't do usury? Will a very beautiful woman be with a Muslim brother who doesn't participate in usury? Because in America, to not participate in usury is a battle. And that means you're going to be a renter. So, until you earn money to buy an acre of land and build on it or something. But will she accept him? That's another angle. So maybe we need more sisters talking to other sisters about why you can build with a man, or pick a man who doesn't participate in interest. It may be understood from the words, "They will not stand on the day of resurrection except like a madman who was being beaten by the shaitan," that when they lost their minds and seeking to earn through usury, they became very foolish and unable to think properly. Their appearance and movements will be like those of insane people, with a complete lack of coordination and loss of rational thinking. Okay, so like insane people, lack of coordination, and loss of rational thinking. Allah, the Mighty and Sublime, says, responding to them and explaining His great wisdom, "But Allah has permitted trade because it serves the public interest, and there is a great need for it, because prohibiting it would cause great harm. This is the basis for the permissibility of all ways of earning, unless there is a text to indicate that something is not permitted. And forbidden usury, because of what it entails of wrongdoing and evil consequences. Usury, riba, is of two types. Riba nasiya, pay now or pay an increased amount later, and riba fadl, which involves trading two things of the same type, where one is greater in quantity than the other. Both are haram, according to the Qur'an and Sunnah, and according to the consensus of the scholars in the case of riba nasiya, those who permitted riba fadl held an odd view that is contrary to the abundant text. Rather, usury is one of the major sins that may doom a person to hell. So usury is a major sin. Riba, R-B-I-A-F-A-D-L. I don't understand that one. Trading two things of the same type, or one is greater in quantity than the other. I don't understand what that is. Okay, and then we had riba, N-A-S-E-E'-A-H. Pay now or pay an increased amount later. Now the pay now, how could you get interest on it? Okay, so maybe that's when you... Oh, okay. I don't know. I didn't understand the increased amount later because the interest increases. But we need more people talking about Islamic banking. Therefore, he who desists, that is, gives up what he is doing and is deterred from it, because of the admonition that has come to him from his Lord, that is, the admonition, reminder and warning against dealing in usury. Reminder and warning against dealing in usury. So, it's hard, but look at, if you go back to the old styles of money in America, they changed around. But on the $1 bills, you'll see like a web in the corners. America used to have a lot of occultic symbolism more in the open, but once people started back in the day making YouTube videos and explaining it to people, the occultic origins, then censorship came in and those people were banned off YouTube. And then the CIA and FBI invented the term conspiracy theorist in order to stop people from taking people seriously when it came to breaking down symbology and imagery and how our eyes participate in that realm. And so, because symbolism is a way of communicating something, but when you think about money and its relation to usury and in relation to hours of labor and the quality of life that money gives people and how much time you spend working versus recuperating and with family, you begin to see that there needs to be a balance, and that usury disrupts that balance. This admonition is a mercy from Allah towards those to whom it is addressed, and serves to establish proof against them. May keep his past gains that resulted from previous transactions in which he engaged before this admonition reached him. He may keep them as a reward for accepting the advice. This verse indicates that the one who does not desist will be punished for both his earlier and later actions. His case is for Allah to judge as to whether to requite him, but those who return to it, that is, to dealing usury, and who do not benefit from the admonition, whether they persist in it, will be inhabitants of the fire. They will abide therein forever. Okay, so clearly, you didn't have the knowledge, but then you were informed. You get to keep some of that money, but you changed your ways. But when you've been given the knowledge and then you're like, I don't care, I'm just going to keep doing it, then that's where you're in some serious trouble. The scholars, may Allah have mercy on them, differed concerning the texts that speak of punishment, where the apparent meaning suggests that those who commit major sins that are less serious than associating others with Allah, shirk, will abide in hell forever. The best view is that which says that in these cases, where Allah states that certain sins will doom a person to eternity in hell, are applicably provided there is no impediment, that is, Tawheed or belief in the oneness of Allah. It is known from the Qur'an and Sunnah, and from the consensus of early generations of the Ummah, that the one who believes in the oneness of Allah, Tawheed, and has faith cannot abide in hell forever. I recall that. Yes, I recall that. However, if a person does not believe in Tawheed, then the sin or usury, let alone his disbelief, would qualify him to abide in hell forever. Okay, so let's put an annotation here of Tawheed. So, we've definitely read hadiths that support exactly what he's saying, which is why I really like reading the hadiths. Allah destroys usury, that is, He takes it away and takes away its blessings. See? So we want to earn Allah's blessing, right? So we have to make sure that that we keep that in check. We want to do good. Okay? Usury is not good. So you want to maintain your blessings, so that it becomes a source of problems and trouble and takes away blessings from the individual's life. If he spends from it, he will not be rewarded. Rather, it will bring him closer to hell. Okay, so usury brings you closer to hell. Usury will bring you closer to hell, but will give increase for deeds of charity. That is, He will cause it to grow and will send down blessings upon the wealth from which the charity is given, and He will reward the giver. So you see the contrast here. Charity versus usury. You won't get no blessing for usury. You will get no blessing for participating in it, but participating in charity, now you're going to get a benefit. So think about that. Usury gives an increased monetary amount to the person who lent it to you, at only their own benefit. They get more money back, right? Whereas with charity, you give it, but Allah can give you your reward in this world and in the next, either or a combination of those, right? So you're gonna get, I don't want to say charity riba, right? But you get an increase for the charity and a net decrease for earthly usury. You see what I'm trying to say? I hope I'm communicating my idea. That is because the requital befits the action. The one who deals in usury wrongs people and takes their wealth in an unlawful manner, so he is punished with the loss of his wealth. The one who is good to people shows kindness to them in different ways. and his Lord is kinder than he is, so he treats him kindly as he is kind to his slaves. Allah does not love any ungrateful sinner, that is, one who is ungrateful for the blessings of Allah, and does not do what is enjoined upon him of giving charity, and people are not safe from him or his evil. Sinner, that is, one who does actions that incur a burden of sin and punishment. So, what is a sinner? This is a key definition. What is a sinner? It's someone whose actions incur a burden of sin, and that action is liable to getting a punishment. After mentioning those who consume usury and noting that if they had been believers who truly benefited from their faith, they would not have done what they did. This then means that not participating in usury is a sign of faith. So if you have strong faith, you're not going to participate in usury to the best of your ability. Allah then mentions the condition and reward of the believers. He addresses them as believers and forbids them to consume usury. If they are indeed believers, they are the ones who accept the admonition of their Lord and obey His command. He instructs them to fear Him, and part of that fear of Him is that they should give up what remains of usury. Okay, so if you really fear Allah, you need to give up usury. That is, any current existing transactions. As for that which is past, whoever heeds the admonition, Allah will pardon him for what is in the past. So Allah will pardon you for what's gone and done. But whoever does not heed the admonition of Allah and does not accept His advice is opposing his Lord and is effectively in a state of war against Him. If you participate in usury, you are warring against Allah, and no one can win against Allah. So you're a loser. At the time when He is helpless and weak and has no power to wage war against the Almighty, the Most Wise, who gives respite to the evildoer but does not forget about him, and will eventually punish him severely. So you've been given respite as a wicked person, but on Judgment Day there is no escape. So don't get arrogant. Oh, look at me, I know. I work for a Chase Bank, blah, 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 blah. Man, I put these interest rates really high. But if you repent from dealing in usury, you may retain your capital, and that is all you are entitled to, neither wronging those with whom you do business by taking anything extra, which is usury. Okay, so doing business and then you're taking extra, that's usury. Nor being wronged by the loss of your capital. If the debtor is in difficulty and cannot pay off what he owes, give him time until it is easy for him to repay. You see the empathy here. Wells Fargo, you're late on a credit card payment. Sometimes there's a $50 fee. There is a squirrel coin. Okay, so beat this. There's a late fee, right? And if it does an automatic payment and you don't have too much money in your bank account and you go to the negative balance, you overdraft, there's an overdraft fee. So there's fees upon fees upon fees. And Hedwig the small bird is really bullying Gladiator, and all he's doing is playing upside down, being goofy. Talk about a bully. But you miss your payment, not only they get to charge interest, but they get to charge you a fee. So you can get into the hole real quick. You call them, I can't pay this month, I can't pay you. Pay us now, peasant. Oh. Oh man. But when you borrow from someone you know, but you have to be careful, but you all gotta repay your debts. That's the hard thing, man. Because people argue, well, interest is for, you punish them for not paying you back. You punish them for being late. You force them to keep their word and make them fear it. Otherwise, they won't repay you back and they won't care. So how will you make it to where people will give you back your money fast? You pay it back faster, not as much interest. You delay it, you'll pay more over time. They want their money back, so they don't trust you to pay your money. So I guess the argument would then be, well, don't just lend to anyone. Have different standards of who you lend money to. And have a different kind of punishment maybe if they don't pay it back. But know that if you give them like, hey, you know what, I'll take off $2,000 for you or a certain percentage, that's an act of goodness. It is obligatory to give him more time until he can afford it. But if you remit it by way of charity, that is best for you, if only you knew. This refers to waiving the debt and completely or partially. So debt forgiveness. Now what's interesting here, you'll see Christians who will say, you shouldn't have your student debt loans forgiven because you should pay back what you owe. I had to pay, therefore you have to pay, and you should have chose a better college career path. And that's an argument. But they also argue with public tax dollars, you shouldn't be paying private debts. That should be put to uses where it belongs. But it is quite interesting. Now the schools being like, hey, we'll give you, we're going to forgive $2,000 for each person, then that would be a more reasonable option. Because the universities do have a lot of money. And fear the day when you will be brought back to Allah. Then every soul will be paid in full for what it earned, and none will be wronged. This verse was one of the last verses of the Qur'an to be revealed, and it was placed at the end of these rulings, commands and prohibitions, because it contains a promise of reward for doing good and a warning against doing evil. If a person knows that he will return to Allah and that he will requite him for all his deeds, great and small, public and private, and that Allah will not wrong him in the slightest, he will inevitably develop hope of reward. So hope of reward and fear of punishment. Without having this knowledge in his heart, there is no way he could develop that hope and fear. So knowledge is key. That's why gaining knowledge, seeking knowledge, spreading knowledge is very important, because we learned it, others may not learn it, so you can create change by spreading the actual Islamic knowledge. And so that's really important. So, again, it's a difficult world, the web of banking. Who owns the banking system? Who pushes the banking system? Who decides? I wish I could show you right now how silly Gladiator's being. The toys I made him, he's just swinging, going, climbing around. Silly goose. But it's a burden. It's a burden to have that kind of sin on you. So maybe there could be more Islamic finance channels, because you have guys like Fresh and Fit. They do push. Myron Gaines claims to be Muslim. He flip-flops back and forth, but he does participate in high interest banking and tells people to participate in that, right? So a lot of red pill bros, they do participate in riba, so you should watch out for that. A lot of finance channels, it's all usury, and you got to be careful. So maybe that's a vacuum. We need to have somebody educating us on that type of finance, because financial literacy is not taught to a lot of people. That teach you women can have a male genitalia, and a man in a dress is a woman. Men can get pregnant. They confuse the hell out of you. They do a lot of strange stuff. They, thems. But teach you financial literacy? No. Explain to you the dangers of usury? No. We're too busy talking about pronouns. It's really strange behavior we have. The education system it's quite poor, actually. Quite poor. So it's up to us individually to seek knowledge, spread knowledge, encourage knowledge, and to become less ignorant each day, and dedicate as much of the free time as we can to learning our faith and spreading our faith. because through it we will help others and help ourselves, and it's a good deed. Very wise. So it's pretty tense, pretty tense. Maybe this will inspire more and more people to open up Islamic banks in countries. Maybe that's part of the reason why people fear Islam, is because Islam would change the banking system and allow more freedom for people. And they don't want you to wake up people to how usury is ruining their lives. So they have to pick something else to complain about Islam, because they gotta hide the underlying banking issue. Because finance is a very wicked realm. Just think about all these different countries' currencies, transaction rates, Federal Reserve, fiat currency. It's a strange world. So many different ways to keep a class structure, and so many different ways to commit shenanigans. The financial bros were always the one who disgusted me. The weirdest part is that when I was dating, there was a lot of financial bros who were into me, but I detest hearing people brag about how much they make a month. And if you think about it, all of them were dealing in usury. It's almost like if you deal in usury, you become more like just polluted, smug, arrogant twats. Maybe some sisters have noticed that as well, but maybe some sisters like that. I don't know. There's some sisters who like a polished bragger. Sadly, we're supposed to be patient and have humility, but hypergamy is real, and some men express their hypergamy through boasting and arrogance. Especially like Andrew Tate. He participates in high interest banking, from my understanding. He has a casino, haram, and he made lots of money off of men using debt to pay for his cam girls. So, what are you gonna do? It's really sad. But may Allah guide us and protect us. If you'd like to support my work, you can join my blog by going to www.subscribestar.com/Milahan Archive. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe. Take care.